And I'd like to explain to you the story embedded on one of the most interesting and one of the largest pieces of art in the show. It's an enormous wall relief from an Assyrian palace, from a palace that was discovered in northern Iraq in the middle of the 19th century. And it's a battle relief. And the artists, I should say, in working on this, have conveyed the confusion, the melee of this battle that took place in ancient times between the Assyrians and the Elamites, who lived in southwestern Iran. And inside the story, among all of this confusion, we have a narrative of the defeat and capture and execution of the king of Elam. We start right over here with the crash of the king's chariot. We have the wheel of the chariot and the 3 horses that drew the chariot, all in confusion, and the king and his son tumbling out of it. This is a very irreverent way for royalty to be displayed, but of course this was the other side. And the king falls down and he loses his hat, and you can recognize him by his hat. You can recognize him by his distinctive receding hairline as we follow him through this narrative. Now, cartoon style, the same figure appears in this relief in different spots to continue the narrative. So we have the next episode, the king, who has already been wounded, being led away with his son, who is armed with a bow. They try to seek refuge in a wooded area, but they are surrounded by Assyrian troops. The king clings to his son lifts up the bow, and we see, just like a modern cartoon, the Assyrian artist has provided you with a caption telling you that this is an important scene, and the king is telling his son, pick up the bow, defend us. They are outnumbered, however, and in the next scene we have the king's son being clobbered over the head by a mace, and we see the king himself is being beheaded, and his son has been beheaded and falls on top of the king's body. The king loses his hat again, this time for the very last time, and then the action switches and we go from right to left. But notice the details that we get all around us. We have the bodies of the slain that are on the battlefield with vultures already pecking at their eyes. We have the quivers and the bows, abandoned, weapons over here. We have the Assyrians pushing forward and driving the enemy into the river at the far right, which is full of bodies of soldiers, horses, and of course the fish which live in the river. Notice particularly the wonderful crab that's right here. The relief is full of detail, and the narrative of the king is just embedded right within it. If we go now from the right to the left, we see more scenes of combat. We have a warrior walking away with the king's head. We have a warrior walking away with the king's son's head. We have a mortally wounded Assyrian soldier, a Elamite soldier, asking an Assyrian soldier to cut off his head and put an end to his misery. This is an interesting episode, and it's given a cuneiform caption, an Assyrian caption. And then we have, going all the way over to the left side of the relief, as battle rages all around us, the head of the king, and you can recognize him still. He's recognizable, the same receding headline, and his son being brought to a pile of severed heads, and the head then being picked up by an Assyrian soldier and taken in a captured Elamite chariot back to Nineveh, where the king is waiting in his palace to receive this trophy of his victory.